Hello and welcome to the Steve and Dan Show, episode number 1. I'm Dan Holloway. This is Steve Herbert. Say hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve. Today we're joined by a special guest, Britney Auclair, and she's going to share a little bit of her journey, sort of how she got involved in SFM, so Six Figure Mentors. First, just to give you a bit of an overview of who we are, so you can understand that aspect. Well, my name's Dan Holloway. I've been in the SFM for now about 7 months or so. Came from a career in software sales, so a bit of a different transition. And my SFM journey has really been, for myself, it's been a whole, experience of self-development, of kind of understanding myself on a deeper level. And Steve, do you want to just give a little bit of an overview of how you got into the SFM as well? And then we'll dive in and talk about Britney and her story, because that's what we want to do.
Sure, yeah. Husband, father, I'm in the U.S., Dan, you're in the U.K., and Britney's in Canada, so we're kind of all over the place here. But I come from the entrepreneurial side. I've started and run several businesses over the years, and I kind of always felt like they were running me instead of me running the business. And I knew that I could leverage the internet and get away from that leash I felt like I have. So I wanted to learn some new skills, and I figured, this was the best way to do it. I tried a bunch of different things, but this really worked for me. So that's nutshell. Very small nutshell, me.
Perfect stuff. And yeah, just off the back of that as well. So for me, it was more about, I was kind of stuck in the corporate rat race, and I'd realized that more money wasn't really bringing me more fulfillment. And I kind of reached that point where I decided that I needed to go down a different path. I wanted something more. I wanted to kind of create a life that I wanted to live, instead of, working for the boss and giving away 70 hours, no matter what the income was. It wasn't really going to be fulfilling. So that's kind of how I got into it and how I got started as well, which I think is quite a common theme for a lot of people. Like most people that come into this, feel they're searching for something. They're looking for more time with friends or family, or, something that's really going to make life more fulfilling and worth living. So off the back of that, it would be great I'm just going to introduce Britney now. It would be great to hear, Britney, some of your story before we dive in. So if you'd love to share with us kind of how you got involved in SFM, that would be great to give us an idea of who you are. Who is Britney?
Well, and let's start with that. Who is Britney? What's your background, kind of?
Okay, I want to just take it over here just a little bit first, and I just want to say thank you for having me. I feel kind of special and privileged to be on the first episode. Just as I work with you guys, I feel like, anyway, it's exciting, so thank you. So who's Britney? I live in Alberta, Canada, and I'm a mother to a 3-year-old, a very active handful of a 3-year-old. And the reason I found SFM was because throughout my working life, I worked very, very long hours. And when I had my son, I realized that I couldn't do that and still show up as the mother that I visualized myself being. And even though this is the society that we grew up in, and this is what people do, they go to work, they work hours, they see their kids at night, maybe weekends, maybe even less than that, there was a part of me that said, there's got to be another way. I can't live that life. I don't want to be that. I don't want to do that. There's got to be another way. So through, some other tunnels of, I went and got a personal trainer certificate, thinking that I could just start my own business doing that, and realized that, as Steve was saying, it would just own me. I would still be putting my time out for money, and I wouldn't make money in the clients. So, I didn't utilize that. I mean, for personal use I have, but I started searching online to see if I could build a business online with fitness, health and fitness, and I came across the SFM, and everything has completely changed since then. So that's how I got here and why I was looking for something else.
Cool. So when you said everything completely changed, what do you mean by that?
Well, before I came into the community, I never seen myself growing like I have. I didn't realize the extent of baggage that I was carrying emotionally and mentally, until I started to learn more about myself and really dive into developing myself, because this is, as we all know, this is required in order to build a sustainable, successful, value-driven business, digitally, online, or anywhere. You have to be the best person you can be, and really drive through value. And so in order to do that, it takes a lot of looking within and figuring out who you are and where you're going and who you need to be to get where you want to go. So through this, my world has completely changed. Before income, my view of life and what I want has changed. How I raise my son has changed. The clarity I have around life, period, has changed. I've never been happier in my life. So separating that from any kind of business or income or that part of it, it's been probably it has been without a doubt, the best experience of my life. It's only been a year and a half. So it's pretty intense.
That's awesome. So being a mom takes a lot of time. I've got kids myself, and I get it. So how do you find the time? How do you make this a part? Because, we don't have unlimited time in the day. Yeah. And something's got to give. So how do you manage that?
Well, that's a really good question, because this has been one of the biggest challenges for me to overcome. And I am here to be completely real. So I'll just say that I am still overcoming it. It's really about balancing what's important. And right now we often get caught up in this, I will do this when I achieve this, or I will, as soon as I'm making this much money a month, then I'll spend all weekend with my son, or as soon as so being conscious of that, because my 3-year-old is living right now and he's developing right now. He needs me to be conscious and aware and with him right now. I have found that I really just live in the moment. And with having those goals set and having that vision of the future still in front of me, I still have to live in the moment. So if I'm working and my son is entertaining himself, playing with his toys or whatever, which isn't often. I usually work in the evening when he's sleeping, or I get up early before he wakes up. I have also put him in daycare 3 days a week so that I can have full days to be on the training calls and get some really focused work done. So that's the stuff I've done for like scheduling. But when it comes to being in the moment, if I am on my computer or whatever it might be, I have been learning, and I'm still learning, how to disconnect from one to be into the other. So if I have a hard morning with my son before daycare and then I get on my computer and it's affecting me, then the answer is meditation. If I am wrapped up in one world and I can't put my focus into the other world that I need to, then I put myself in a place of relaxation and I meditate, because I found that that's the best way for me to balance out the two with a clear mind, with clarity. Because if you're a parent like Steve, you can get your frustration from one world will pour into the other. And the ultimate goal is to integrate our worlds and have them one and not have them separate.
Yeah.
But there is a window that we have to pass through before we achieve that, I think. Anyway, from my experience, you need to get some momentum going before I have to have that momentum in my business and that security or that independence before I can take my son and my computer and travel the world and homeschool him and do the things that I'm going to do. So how do I balance out the two? I just make sure that I keep a clear mind and I stay focused in the moment that I'm in. It, I guess, is the best way for me to put it. And again, that might change in a month, right? Like, things are constantly changing as I grow. So that's probably the best way to put it, I'd say.
Cool.
If that answers the question. It's kind of a long-winded.
and I apologize for the ringing in the background. I don't know how to turn that one off. I just switched phones, and now it rings on every device I have, and I don't know why.
The life
and technology improving my life, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
let me see if I can understand what you just said and try and synthesize it down. Essentially, it's prioritizing. You've made this a priority, so you'll make sure you get it done. And then being mindful of your mindset so that you don't let one negatively affect the other, whether it's time with your son or whether it's time working on your business or time working on yourself, whatever part of your life you're in, making sure that the negative parts don't cross into the other.
Bang on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And just to expand on that a bit further, because I think it's such an important point, isn't it, to be able to segregate those parts and make sure you're focusing on what's valuable to you. A lot of people will often come into the SFM or think about coming into the SFM, and they feel that they don't necessarily have the time. They've got busy lives, they've got a lot of things going on, and it's about that, like you say, the delegating the time effectively. So what would you say from your point of view, Britney, has really been the biggest change that you've seen in yourself to realize that although you had a busy life before, because everyone does, what was the single biggest change that helped you manage your time and realize that you had the time to actually segregate the things that are important to you and live this life?
I would say the mindset, and it comes back to prioritizing as well. But for me, the biggest thing that I had to realize, or the realization that I came to that drives me to make this work no matter what, is I can't afford not to. I can't afford to work for someone else until I'm 60 years old and then spend the last years of my life struggling financially. I can't afford to bring my son up into a industrial mindset when he's not going to be able to thrive in that with our economy changing.
Yeah.
This is something I can't afford not to do. So that's what drives me to make it work. I have days where I struggle, where I feel like I've done nothing for my business and it sets me back. I have weeks where I feel that way. But no matter what, even when I have that mind, that doubt, whether it be myself or it's usually my ability that I start to doubt, those thoughts start to creep in. I have to have the ability to pull myself out of that. And the bottom line is you just keep going, because whether it takes me 10 years to ultimately achieve everything I want to for myself and for my son, and for the people around me, just the purpose and value that I want to add to the world. If it takes me 10 years to get there, I better start now. I better start now. I better start somewhere. Because in 10 years, if I don't, in 10 years, I'm going to be where I am right now. Or not right now. I shouldn't say that. I would have been where I was a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, right? I would have been miserable with no hope and unsure about the future and how I was going to manage everything. And I think that we all right now, the world as a whole, we really struggle with uncertainty. And that's something that the SFM has brought into my life, is certainty. I'm certain where I'm going and what I'm going to achieve. What that really looks like in detail, I don't know yet. The time frame it's going to take me to get there, I don't know yet. But those are things that I don't worry about at this point. I just keep moving forward. So for me, I hope it answers your question, it's the mindset or the decision that there's no other option.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And that's awesome to hear that. It's really, because again, if you're coming into this with the attitude of I need to make this work no matter what, whatever the outcome, I'm gonna focus on this. And even I guess when you're feeling like you don't want to work, you're not in the mood, you're tired, all this kind of thing, it drives you through, doesn't it? It just pushes you through that to kind of make sure that you are doing the work to get to where you want to get to. And it's that drive, knowing that we don't have a choice.
Yeah.
So from your point of view, I mean, with the SFM, if there was a new member coming into SFM, and let's say they've got their own drive, their own motivations, in your experience, what would you say is let's say one bit of advice that you give someone who's starting out? They've got their drive, they've got their motivation, but maybe they're feeling a little overwhelmed in the early modules and so on. What would be your one thing that you'd say to someone in that situation?
One thing is hard.
Maybe allow 2 or 3 if you like.
One thing that I would say, the number one thing I think that comes to mind right now would be stop thinking, try and get the belief, like smash the belief that you are alone, that you're doing this by yourself, because we are not built to do things by ourselves. We are built to work together. And that's one thing that the SFM has mastered is community. And we have a community that has your back 100%. So I would say to a new member, get rid of the belief that it's every man for himself, because I know that nowadays the majority of people live their lives that way, because in the industrial world, we kind of have to, in a lot of areas. But so I would say coming into this, when you feel that overwhelm or you start to feel like this might not be for you or whatever it might be, utilize the people around you and step out of your comfort zone and reach out to people, because you would be surprised at how much difference it makes. And 2, I would say be vulnerable. Just be open and vulnerable, because that's when we have our hearts open and we can really receive the value that's right in front of us. So yeah, that's 2 things that I would say right off the bat, probably. Yeah.
That's great. And the answer to this question might be the answer that you just gave, but I'm curious, is there something that before you were in the SFM, before you joined the community, that, or maybe right when you started with the community, that you saw as a huge challenge, but since you've been with the community for some time, that now you look back at and you wonder, why did I even think that was a challenge? Something that you've overcome that now is routine or just not even a part of your life.
Interesting. Yeah, I'd have to put myself back. So much has changed since then.
Could be something technical, could be something personal, anything.
I would probably say the overwhelm hasn't really stopped for me. I just know how to deal with it better. But I would say that probably the biggest challenge when I came in is there is so much training available. Like, we have such a wide range of training and coaching and masterminds and webinars. And I would say that the biggest challenge for me would have been, probably just following the modules and following the steps given. You're so anxious when that's exactly probably what it is, because I had to go back and do the modules twice because I rushed through them. Now you're told, do the work and do it properly, but you're so you're so anxious to get in and start making money or whatever it might be. Usually when people come in, it's to start making money, and your drive is towards that. You just want to get through all that shit and move on to the marketing and your business and get things rolling. But all that shit is the foundation. And if you don't lay the foundation, then you're going back and you're doing it again. So I think for me, that was the biggest challenge, is listening to the coaches and the mentors, the people who have done it, the people who know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I would say just listen, be patient, go through the steps, do the work properly. And when they say to learn, do, teach, that's what you need to do. And often we get into learn. And without the do, we don't go anywhere. So I guess that's two things. One, do the work step by step as you're taught with the modules. And two, only focus in on what you're doing. So,
be in the
I don't
moment.
know, maybe one of you guys can sum that up a bit better than me, but yeah.
Well, I think you said it well about, do the work, get the basics done. You can only do one thing at a time. In reality, you can only do one thing at a time. People that are multitasking are just shifting their focus, but they're still only doing one thing at a time. So do that one thing, do it well, and then move on. And don't worry about what's 5 or 6 steps down the road.
Exactly.
It'll be there when you get there. It's not going anywhere, so do the basics. Cause I think I'm a lot like you in that respect. I was like, I just want to get going. And I did the same thing. I went back through the modules twice and slowed down and then went through it. And I got a lot more out of it the second time for sure.
I can relate to what you said as well, Brittany, about just trusting like the mentors, trusting the people that have been there first and done it. Because like one of my biggest challenges that I overcame when I first started was not thinking that I sort of thought that I'd know best. So I'd be like, okay, well, I see what they're saying, but I want to do it my way. And then I start doing it my way. And I had to basically go, whoa. Dan, you don't know what you're doing better than these guys that are making the money and that are achieving the success. Just trust what they say and do what they say. And it was, for me, same as you, I think it was a thing where I had to just get my ego out of the way and slow down and just trust that they knew what they were doing. So I can totally relate to that. We throw a quick question at you as well that I think a lot of us would probably like to hear. Now that you've joined SFM, where do you see yourself in 5 years?
So this changes a lot. But mainly where I see like the unnegotiable things are I'll be homeschooling my son, so he won't be in traditional education. Now, there's a couple things like that's not black and white for me. One of my focuses is I want him to be bilingual. So like his father is French, I'm English, and so he already has that going for him. But because he's with me 90% of the time, French he's not learning it at this age yet. A little bit, but not a whole lot. So that's one of my focuses is, sorry, I got off a little bit. But one, I want to be homeschooling him, but I also want him to experience traditional school. So what I think I'm probably going to do is have him in it, and we're going to decide together, basically. We're going to decide together how he feels, what we want, and traveling. I want to be traveling, and in 5 years, I want to be adding value on stage. So whatever that looks like, I don't know what that looks like yet. And it took a long time for me to actually say those words. And because I am not someone who usually I really hold myself back and I don't speak and I'm nervous and I'm, all these insecurities. But deep down, and I've had dreams and visions, and especially through meditation, I've seen myself in a position like that. So I know that's where I'm going. So that's where I see myself. So those are the non-negotiable things. When it comes to where I'm living, that's in the clouds, because that doesn't matter to me. Like geographically, I could be living anywhere. I love Canada, but I also want my son to see the rest of the world. So I know that we're going to be all over the place. And I don't have specific financial goals, number to number. Sorry.
That's all right.
It wants to restart.
Right. Hey, it wasn't me this time.
Yeah, Steve, you're off the hook.
Yeah.
So it's it's not the typical answer of where do you see yourself in 5 years. I don't see myself owning a house yet, which a year ago I did. and I know exactly what it looks like, and all that will come, but I don't see that as non-negotiable. I want to travel, and my son is a good age to do so, like at this age. So as you can tell, like a lot of my focus is his upbringing and his experiences. And I'm driven towards not only doing that for my son and I, but also helping other parents do that. So not just do that, I mean, overall that's up to each individual, each family, but to see that it's possible to do, just to start to believe that it's possible, how possible it really is. So that's probably the best answer I can give you for.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And just on a personal note, when you get to the homeschooling decision, reach out to me. We've been homeschooling for 4 years now. So yeah.
See?
Yeah.
I am where I'm
from. I will come on over. It's great. And I'll be completely honest. My wife does 80-90% of it, maybe more. But we're really happy with that decision. Sorry, Dan, you were.
No, that's all right. No problem. I was just going to add as well. It's so interesting, Brittany, to hear you say about the financial side of it as well, because a lot of the time, I'd say probably 90% of people that come into SFM, me included, you start initially saying, "Hey, I want to earn loads of money and live this life of freedom and so on and so forth," and then very quickly, as you go through this, you realise that that's really not important. Like that's not the be and end all. I mean, financial freedom is financial freedom. And once you've got that, it's kind of like, it's like the start. It's like the beginning. It's like your life opens up and you realize that money is trivial. As long as you've got money to do the things that you need to do, that's then what becomes important. And it's so awesome to hear, the things that you want to do with your son and your focus on that aspect. And I think that's just testament as well to how the SFM, again, it's not just about making money. It's about just giving people the opportunity to create the life that they want, whatever that looks like for them. And the fulfillment is going to come from something so much deeper than money. So it's great to hear that you've had that experience.
Yeah. One note on that, sorry, Dan, is you said financial freedom is financial freedom. And I think the reason I struggle putting it, because when I joined SFM, that's what I was going for is a dollar amount. But that was fear. That was fear. That was insecurity. That was me saying, I need out of the life I'm in, and the only thing that's going to do it is money. But as you said, as you go through, you start to realize that that's not actually reality. And if I am traveling and I am homeschooling my son, it doesn't matter how much I'm making because I'm making enough to live the lifestyle that I want to live. So it's really, that's how. So when you said like it's, financial freedom is financial freedom. Exactly. And to me, you can't really put a number to it, although it's a good place to start. I am not saying don't set some financial goals, or even if it's an exact number. I mean, I encourage all that. Just personally, I'm in a spot where I don't have a specific number. I just know what I want, and whatever number that takes is what I'll have.
Yeah, I think you kind of alluded to that earlier in the conversation when you were talking about the balance in your life. And how you talked a little bit about not taking the negative from one part into another and being present. When your son's around, you're present with him. Whatever you're doing, you're in that. And I really see that as the important thing. And, like Dan was saying, that a lot of times people will put this number out there. And if you really look at your life, if your basic needs were taken care of, you then had all of this extra time and you could completely be in control of your life. How great is that? And that's not these crazy numbers that, you see people talking about. It's, for most people, it's a pretty simple number, to actually be free, to not have to sit in traffic or, not have my business rule me. It's not a huge hurdle at all. Anyway, I was going to ask, but you already kind of answered this. How different is that 5-year plan, 5-year vision of yourself compared to before. And you mentioned the house. Before it was like, gotta own a house, and now I need to have a quality of life.
Yeah.
I don't need this thing.
You know what the difference is I had the typical, what the ego should have, right? I came into the SFM wanting what I thought I should want, right? So I want this much a month. I want to drive this vehicle. I want to live in this house. I want, a beautiful log home with pastures. I still want that, and I'll still get it. But at this point, it's not priority anymore. I only wanted that as soon as I could get it, because that's what my social programming told me that I should have. And as you start to develop yourself and you start to really, truly learn who you are intrinsically and what's important to you, like your values, all that stuff starts to crumble, and it doesn't matter anymore. Your life isn't restricted or driven in a certain direction that society says it should be. And I think that we all kind of struggle there. And so for me, that's where I was. I came in wanting what I should want, what people thought I should have, or the best way I can put it. I don't know, I know you two will understand, but the best way I can put it is my goals were ego driven and not value driven. So that shifted for me. Now I can recognize when my ego steps in, and my values kind of overrun it now at this point in my life.
That's great. Yeah. So you run into the Britney of a year and a half ago. What's the one thing you want to tell her?
I want to tell her that this gets me emotional. I would tell her that she's valuable, that she has something that the world's waiting for.
I agree.
And I would tell her that there's nothing to fear, that there's nothing to be afraid of, And I'd tell her to get that out of her head. Stop identifying with those nasty thoughts. So that's a really good question. I think that's a really powerful question for all of us to answer, actually.
Absolutely. No, thanks for sharing that, Brittany. And I think a lot of people, as you say, would definitely relate to that. And I know for me, that definitely rings true as well. So thank you for your vulnerability, and thank you for spending the time to speak with us today. It's been an honor to have you here. So thank you for
having me.
Good stuff.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you, Dan.
Yeah, thanks.
It's been awesome.
Great being here.
Yeah, no, it's lovely to have you. So until next week, we're going to be having another special guest next week on the Steve and Dan Show. But Brittany, again, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. And we'll see you all soon. Have a great week, everyone.
Take care.
Cheers, guys. Bye for now.